Welcome to Screen Chat. I'm Neil Bashins, and this is the show where I sit around with my friends and talk about film and television and pop culture. Joining me this week, Warren Nightingale. Warren, how you doing?
Hey, Neil. Happy to be here. Hey, it's just me this time.
Hey, yeah, it's just, this is the first time we're doing this list. Things are a little bit different this week. We're going to try doing, maybe I'll call this Screen Chat Reviews. Warren and I both saw, earlier this week on opening night, we saw Creed 2. So, and there's
Yes,
a lot
we did.
here. There's a lot here to unpack. And so I thought we'd try reviewing this as an experiment, and it'll go nicely with the last two episodes that were the Rocky saga.
Nice.
All right. So jumping right in, I'm going to say off the top, I liked Creed 2, but I did not love Creed 2. And I think it was a definite step back from Creed 1.
Oh, I agree. That's definitely a step back. And I think my reaction to it is a little less kind than yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you sum it up?
I think the best way I could say it is I was frustrated. I found this film really frustrating to me. And now I guess to put this in total context is I walked away from the Rocky universe after 5 and thinking that, okay, there's nothing here in this franchise anymore. I know they're not making any more films. And I honestly felt that back in when it was made, early 90s, I'd say. Something
Rocky
like that.
5, yeah, I think it's
like
earlier,
92,
mid-90s.
something like that. And of course, when Rocky Balboa came out, I had a huge. It took a lot to win me over, and it did. It did win me over, and in fact, just watching it again, I actually have quite a bit of affection for that film. And then Creed came out, and I really enjoyed Creed. And all of a sudden, this film comes out, and I feel like this is more in line with a Rocky 4 and a Rocky 5, and it really did not, for me, hit what was great about Rocky Balboa, what was great about Creed. It sort of didn't feel fresh. It didn't feel like it was taking a fresh stand on, in this world that is Rocky. And it felt like it was almost like a paint by numbers. Hey, you know what? This is kind of like what the Rocky formula is. Let's just crank this out there for people to watch. And I felt very frustrated because I think there's a lot of things they could have actually done with it. And I thought, you know what? I thought they may have moved the story a certain way and it didn't. And maybe that's part of my own not measuring my own expectations. But I was really frustrated with it.
I would agree with all of that. The original saga, Rocky 1 was really great, and then 2 just sort of continued the story, and then it just progressed downhill into just being sequels, and when it hit Rocky Balboa was the first time it really had something new and interesting to say.
Exactly.
And then Creed, I think we covered this last time out, that Creed, the first time I saw it, I didn't like it, and maybe I was just having a bad day, because then when I went back and rewatched it recently, I really, really liked it, and because I think that it paid tribute to Rocky and was almost like a love letter to the original film, the original series, and it hit it nodded to its tropes, but did not shoplift them and take them for itself.
Yeah.
And this, I felt, did progress backwards to where it absolutely just feels like a Rocky sequel, and they actually went and just sort of shoplifted them from stuff from the earlier films to try to fill out their film.
Exactly, which is really, really too bad because I like we're talking about. I felt like they were walking away from that a little bit. Mm-hmm. They found that nice balance, like in Rocky Balboa. There's a really nice balance of there being nostalgia for the original series, especially the first film, and yet it still has something to say about here's what it's like to be aging and still struggling with that identity. Something similar, but it's different.
It had a new thing to say.
Yeah,
and I don't think. And when I say that I liked Creed 2, it's probably that in there I found things I like.
Okay.
As an overall film, maybe not so much. And as we go through this conversation, maybe I'll get myself clear. I'll get a clearer picture for myself on that. There were things in it I liked, but there was definitely things in it that I would have excised from it and pulled out to make a tighter film. In general, and this is one of the things I really don't like about it, I felt that the whole story, in broad strokes, the story is basically a remake of Rocky 3 and 4 jammed together.
It is. Especially 4. It doesn't feel like...
I'm going to take 1 second. I'm just going to take this spot. I should have said this right off the top. This is going to be a spoiler heavy. We are going to talk about all the things in here. So if you have not seen Creed 2 and don't want this spoiled for you, don't listen to this. Hit pause. Go watch it, or once you've seen it, come back, because this is a conversation we're probably going to go into a lot of detail about what's wrong or what we did and did not like about it. So Beyond here, there be spoilers. Sorry, Warren.
No,
continue.
thank you for saying that, because that's a
I
really
should have done that off the top. But
well, and here's the thing, like, and there's what I guess part of what was so frustrating about it is because there's a real missed opportunity here. Like, what's so interesting about the Creed character is that he has a father who's a boxing champion, who's legendary, but he's absent. And so how do you live up to somebody who's not there? Now you have the character of Drago, whose father was a boxing, I would say, for the intent of the universe, failure, because he didn't reach the peak that people expected him to, but who was there. And so you have this dichotomy between these two different characters that isn't, I don't think, effectively explored.
There is a big through line through the entire film of fathers and sons.
Oh, there certainly is.
And I did like that they were trying to do that.
Yeah.
They just did not pull it off 100% as good as it could have been done.
Well, to use the boxing metaphor, I don't think those punches landed.
Nope.
No, because first of all, for Creed, all that was explored in the first one, right? And even though in this film, he's going through the anticipation of fatherhood, which I don't think, to me, felt very on the surface and superficial. Like,
that was not really dove into he didn't have a problem with being a father or something. It wasn't something that spooked him or
none of that. And then yet we go to the Drago family, and it kind of felt like there was nothing really fresh there. It's not like we're getting a perspective from the younger son who's trying to navigate his father's failures, and that's put upon him. Like, where I think this could have really been interesting, and of course we haven't talked too much about the film yet, and so maybe it's not fair to talk about what it isn't. However, one thing I walk away going, what I would have loved to have seen? This film being about Drago and almost solely about Drago.
I think it could have been. It's a Creed sequel, so they're going to want to put Michael B. Jordan front and center. But I would have liked a lot more Drago.
Yeah,
both Dragos,
and that's where
Drago Senior and Junior.
Absolutely, I think that's where they could have taken the story, because first of all, they explored Creed as a character in this universe. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. So can you imagine now if they all of a sudden explore Drago as a character? And
they only sort of allude to it again. You're saying it's sort of it's a little bit deeper than surface, but not much. But they allude to that, Ivan Drago raised his son, and all he really knows how to teach him is boxing, and his son was a big, strong kid, so he was going to try, and he was trying to put his, he was trying to live vicariously through his son. He will succeed where I'll failed, and this will redeem me from being a failure. But they could have touched on that a little bit more. They had one scene. It's when they come out of the dinner with all the rich people.
That's right.
That they have the argument outside, and the son kind of confronts him and says,
"Hey, Dad, these are the people who
why
walked
do you
away
care?
from you.
They threw you away. Why do you care about their respect?" And I think with a few more scenes explored, we could have done that. I will say this film did really flesh out Ivan Drago as a character. From a character that in Rocky IV was a cardboard cutout and nothing more than a symbolic or a metaphor. Yeah. He actually feels like a character in here, and props to Dolph Lundgren. I thought he played it well. And they had a couple of good scenes. They had the scene where in one scene they go to, Drago shows up at Rocky's restaurant.
Yeah.
And they kind of have, I could have used a little bit more of that, but I liked the idea that he went to confront him.
Yeah, but the only thing is when I was seeing that scene again, and maybe I'm being hypercritical, but when I was seeing that scene, I'm like, okay, this is the only time we spent at Adrian's, the restaurant, at this time. And so how long has Drago been hanging out there? Like, Rocky, what's the point of Rocky even walking in? Like, there's nothing set up even in the story or even just logically for him to be there. But even the story, okay, they're now in Philadelphia. And so, okay, we'll have him confront, to me, it just felt it was constructed for the point of almost to cater to fans as opposed to telling the story.
You know what? You're right. I probably like the idea of the scene, but I'm going to say it was not put in the right place and it wasn't structured. If you strip a lot of this story down, and we'll probably do this a lot throughout this show here, but I think if the story had been more like Drago comes to Philadelphia to challenge, and then after the press conference, Ivan walks into Rocky's restaurant, and maybe that the hostess can be like, Rocky, there's someone here to see you, and it could be him, and maybe Rocky says, here, sit down, and they just sit there and talk out some other stuff.
Yeah, and and what's so neat about Rocky Balboa is, okay, you had Spider there at the restaurant, and Rocky, he's a character who is fairly a warm heart. Right, big heart, absolutely. That's the symbolic of Rocky, And he doesn't have grudges really. Like, he has certainly failures, but he doesn't really have grudges to any of the boxers that he's ever fought and things like that. And so I think they could have had a really interesting conversation in that. No, of course
there would still be somewhat of a grudge. This
because
would be the guy
he killed Apollo.
Yeah.
All those pieces, I get.
But that could have been played as a lot more of just like an old wound for Rocky.
Yeah.
And then him still trying to find, this is this guy. And you could have played it that they've never seen each other since that night. And I think there could have been some good stuff mined out of there. Like, they seem to have a little bit of chemistry, and I think that could have been fun. And I wish it would have dug more.
Yeah, like Stallone and Dolph Lundgren have a lot of good chemistry, and so more screen time with them would have definitely have just benefited the film. But I guess where I'm also heading with this comment is the whole storyline of Rocky not seeing Robert Jr. with his grandson. That did not hit for me at all.
I kind of had that on deck too. That I think Rocky had too big a role in this, and screen time is spent on Rocky, the character, that could have been given to other people. Where I really think if he's going to continue to be, continuing in this franchise with him in this film, his role should really be stepped back to being the Mickey role, the trainer.
Totally.
He did not need his own separate sideline. It should have just been him with Adonis.
Absolutely, because they have that storyline that he hasn't seen his grandson. I don't buy that because like as a character, again, he's got a huge heart, right? Family's important to him. The fact that he sort of put a closure to who he was as a boxer, and that's all been taken away. He's just battled cancer. And so you're to tell me he has a grandson out there?
At no point he's never, like, even though his son moved away.
Yeah.
And in Rocky Balboa, they really did a thing of healing their relationship.
Yeah.
And then in Creed, they sort of the last Creed film, they passed it off by just saying, well, he moved away, so we're not as close.
Yeah.
But now they've gone right to we're estranged and we don't talk. And with a grandson, and like you said, he just went through cancer and all that. It's like, no, it doesn't track.
No, and it strikes me that he hasn't come to Philadelphia. He hasn't come to visit his mother's grave. Even they built up in previous times that the son is much like Adrian, right? And so that, to me, that doesn't. The only thing that really plays is so that way Rocky can have a conversation at the graveyard. It seems like, okay, we have to check that box now.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll have the bottle on Paulie's. It's almost like it felt like they were just checking things off as opposed to letting things unfold to make it a little bit deeper.
And Stallone does have a writing credit on this. And I kind of wonder if he didn't write some of these scenes in for himself. He's like, well, what really worked for me before was sitting at the grave, and I really love that, and audiences love that, so I'm going to do that again.
And that's what it felt like. It felt like that's the way he was breathing. And that's why I think when I walked away, I would have loved to have seen Drago, because can you imagine if this film was about Drago and maybe just a little bit of Rocky, a little bit of Creed, and basically saying to the effect of Rocky saying there's a guy coming up, he's dangerous, and then all of a sudden we sort of flipped the narrative to this, and what they ultimately build to is a third film where now they're going to be facing off against each other. So we had time to spend in the Creed world, we had to spend time in the Drago world, and now they're going to be facing off as almost like a Spider-Man, Superman versus Batman. Well, we have Creed versus Drago, where we see both characters sympathetic and dealing with their issues of the who their fathers were and how they played out against each other. And now they're on stage just because they're really good at what they do. And I think there could have been some really interesting storytelling through all that. So
I think, like I commented earlier, it's partially a remake of Rocky 3 in that they do the storyline. Now, first of all, when they were stuck with what happened in the last film, that he wasn't the champion. So the first fight in the film is him winning the championship. Yeah. And it just seems very perfunctory just so that he has it because they need him to have the title for the rest of the film.
And didn't that feel flat?
It did. And I think, and then in the middle of the film, they have the first fight between Drago and Creed where Drago, and we'll get into more of this after, the kind of stupidity of that fight and how it played out. But they have Drago beat him, but not win the title. He gets disqualified. But it's very much like Clubber Lang beating Rocky.
Yeah.
That then Rocky has to train differently and get over his fear. And the reason he lost is because he was emotionally checked out and whatever. And they play that same card here, where this time it's Rocky won't train him, and his girl and Tessa Thompson's pregnant now and stuff. And so Adonis has so much else on his mind that then it's like he's emotionally not in the fight, and he gets beat because of that. And then they build up to, then he has to go train and get revenge and go fight Mr. T again, except this time we've also added the element that it's Victor Drago, the son of the guy that killed his father, and then they add in the whole, and now you got to go to Russia to fight him, so they're trying to tag on.
And why are they going to Russia?
Exactly, and that makes no sense, and they're trying to just tag on the end of Rocky 4 now.
Yeah.
And I think this film would have been a lot more interesting, just say spitballing here, and I haven't really fleshed this out in my head too much, but what if at the start of the film we see two parallel storylines of Creed training with Rocky because he's going to fight the champion, he's going to fight for the title, he's worked up into contention, and so now it's the first part of it is him training, and also we see young Drago winning fights in Russia and flesh out their storyline. And they do address it in the film that his mother had abandoned them, that Brigitte Nielsen's character had walked away on them and whatever, which kind of fell flat because they didn't really go for it. And it seemed to be there just so that they could put her in the film.
Yeah.
And then if you get up to, like, say, the middle of the film or like, the end of Act 1 maybe, and it's like Creed wins the title. And then meanwhile, Victor's been building up in contention, and then you can kind of have that promoter that I'm not sure, and it would not be the first liberty that these films take with real life, and I don't know how, the promoters in real life work, but even if Victor was not the number one contender, just because of the name value, I would have bought if they tried to promote that as a fight.
Yeah.
But then in the film as it is, Rocky is afraid of Creed fighting Drago. For no reason at all. He's a boxer. He's going to fight guys. And Rocky's, they have this scene, and I guess it's just because whoever wrote the line and thought it was cool, where Rocky says, that guy broke things inside of me that had never been fixed. Yeah, awesome. And you're two different people. And you were also a character that was portrayed as when you fought him as you would have been a little bit past your prime and had actually probably retired. It was very unclear in Rocky IV, but you were probably retired. And you're fighting a young guy who just turned pro and is hungry and bigger and more dangerous than you. So, yeah, he'd hurt you. But if Adonis is in the prime of his career, he has to take on other contenders. So you're going to be afraid of this guy because of the name? And I think if they would have played it out more later on, he's afraid because he's spooked, not so much about, because he, make it that Rocky has a problem with that not Adonis. And then and then you could have built to a third film at the end of the film, but have it be the first time Drago and Creed fight instead of, ripping off the Rocky III storyline.
Yeah.
That it could have just been that Creed has the title, this some promoter or whatever manages to work it so that he's got to fight him, and that guy sort of dirtbaggy wants to push the idea of he killed your father, and maybe Rocky is a little bit distracted by that and then projects it onto Adonis being like, I think you'll be distracted, and Adonis can be like, no, this is a thing, if this is a demon for me, I'm going to excise it, and I do want to fight him, and I have to. He's the contender, so I'm going to have to fight him. And just build to that. I think that would have been better than aping the Rocky III storyline.
100%. I agree with you. Like if the story was essentially, here's two trains on the same track heading towards each other, because ultimately, as they are defeating their opponents and as they're building up their own
records, cachet,
and everything like that, they're going to meet at some point, right? And just building, higher and higher stakes as they go, that would have created way more tension than already was there by having that early fight. I agree. I think that would have been a much better way to explore and to tell this story. And
less of Rocky having his own sideline, and you could have devoted more time to Victor and Ivan.
Yeah.
I'm going to say here that I did really like the conclusion of the last fight. The idea of it.
I like the idea of it.
That Ivan Drago, his son was getting beaten now, and he threw the towel in.
Yeah, how well it was executed. That we could talk about that.
In the moment, it was a really great thing, but I don't think they built up to it enough.
Yeah, because there's an idea, and I think they do an effective job of not being explicit, but saying that, okay, is Drago, how much does he really care about his son? Because he is training him so hard and pushing him so hard, and is it more about mandate than it is about affection for his child? And I think in that scene, they're building up to where he's like, no, I can't put my son through this. And there's sort of some tenderness to it, which I think does come across, especially as an idea.
It comes across in the moment
as an idea, I would think, more than it does in the execution of it. Where I do like that, and I think there's an element of that could have been, but because there's not enough tension up until that point, it doesn't have the payoff.
See, I would have loved it if through the entire film, if Drago's relationship to his son almost had shades of the relationship between J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller in Whiplash, where he's hard on him, and maybe even somebody else can be like, why are you so hard on your son? He goes, this is how you make a champion. I'm being hard. I'm doing this to help him. And then when you get to the end and he's getting beaten, Drago could have had that moment, and he could have just been like, no, he's done, and I'm just letting him stand there to get beaten for what? And throw the towel in. And that would have been a moment if you'd built to it. I liked the moment, but I think I built the story for myself. The movie didn't really build it for me.
Yeah, and because it's such a juxtaposition to what that means to the Rocky's experience of he should have done that.
Exactly.
Right? I'm not sure if the stakes were quite there in the same kind of way and what they intended. But I think, like you, in my head, I like the idea of it, and even in my head, like I'm thinking that again, if you spend a lot of time with them in their relationship, and maybe there is, some things for them to work through together, like in the fact that let's say, as a broken man, Drago Senior is not quite on the scene, but the son recognizes that I need to have a relationship with him, or even from a boxing perspective, I need to tap into his experiences so that way I can kind of work through this, or just by the fact of who my opponent's going to be, I need to connect, and the two of them have some conflict or whatever that they need to work through, so then by the end, by having something like that take place, it could have had a little bit more of a payoff. I don't know.
Yeah. Think on this too now, just to explain why, as we're talking here, the last fight takes place in Russia, which makes no sense.
No.
In the context of the film, Drago does not have the title, he has no negotiating power, and somehow they play it out as if they can demand the fights in Russia. And all that was to make a nod at Rocky IV, and it's stupid. But imagine change that, have the fight be in the States, either in Philly or LA or whatever, but imagine if at near the end of the second act, that's when Ivan Drago comes to the restaurant and talks to Rocky and have a really uncomfortable conversation. They haven't seen each other in 30 years. And then maybe Drago tries to work up to the point, but he doesn't know how to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But just have him say, I regret what happened to Apollo. I'm sorry. I know I can't, this doesn't do anything, but that has weighed on me that I did that. I'm not inhuman. I'm not a machine. That did affect me. And have Rocky not forgive him.
Yeah,
and then you could say that,
right?
and then at the last fight, after Drago throws the towel in and Adonis retains the title, you could have had a moment where Rocky walks over in the ring to Ivan, and they could shake hands, and Rocky can just say, we're done. I accept. Let's just leave the past in the past." And that could have been a great moment.
Yeah, and that's where Rocky Balboa is in the film. I'm saying that. It has that way of looking back at that nostalgia and that what has happened and how that has impacted, and you see the lines on the face reflecting the character of the experiences. Where here Drago is still, you must break him. Like it's like he hasn't changed in
But then right at the end, he
30
flips.
years.
He does flip at the end and sort of humanize a bit.
Yeah, and so for him,
and I really think that line of "you must break him" was again just written of, hey, let's reflect the line from the first one.
Yeah,
and it's out of place.
Yeah, like this whole thing feels like it's just let's do some stuff so we can throw in the trailer and fan bait people to be really excited about it, because I felt like there was nothing more beyond what I saw in the trailer and what I was excited about in the trailer that it didn't take it anywhere else. Like it felt like everything was just checking off the boxes. Like
the film almost had an identity crisis that parts of it wanted to be something more, but it was more important to check those boxes and whatever and be a sequel than it was to be its own thing. It didn't have the filmmakers didn't seem to have the bravery to be their own thing. They were like, well, this is what people want, and we're going to give them this thing instead of let's try a thing.
Yeah. And, if I have to pick something that does well, I would say, some of the pageantry that is always good in Rocky films, like the color schemes of the matches and capturing, the boxing matches itself. It was interesting. I don't think it did it quite as well as the previous two. However, and of course they kick in the Rocky theme at a pretty big moment, which I'm like, okay, I did have a reaction to, and I like that. I think that was a good moment. But even having Bianca do a song, I'm like, this feels kind of weird that she's coming out doing a song. And that's another criticism I would have of the film, is that there's a great character that she had a lot of purpose in the first Creed, and here, okay, she's going to be a mother, but it's not. It just feels very superficial on the surface for her. Yeah,
two great actresses in Tessa Thompson and Felicia Rashad playing Adonis Creed's stepmother or de facto mother, and Tessa Thompson as his girlfriend, fiance, wife, and mother of his child. And there could have been a story there of her saying, okay, I understand, Felicia Rashad and Tessa Thompson could have had some stuff where, maybe Tessa Thompson, Bianca, is doubting if she should really support him and she's nervous. And Felicia Rashad could have been, you've chosen this life. You chose your life partner is a fighter.
Yeah.
And that means at times he's going to do these things. And I had lots of great times with his father, with Apollo, and I had bad times, but in the end of the day, I don't regret it, and I would have never tried to stop him. And you have to choose that if you choose that to be with him, this is his life, and you have your life too, but it should be, you have to accept that this is what they're like.
Or even give him a little bit about motherhood, like
a thing like that.
Even leave the guys out of the equation and
Exactly.
say, I'm becoming a mother. I'm not sure I'm ready for this. I wanted this as my career and whatever. And there could be, some really nice exchanges of that, and then sort of salt and pepper the guys in as part of that conversation.
And instead, the two of them are almost like they're there, but then they're just really nothing happens with them. No. And they have a couple scenes, but it's like, it's right there. Like, Felicia Rassad's an awesome actress, and yet they're just like, they don't have anything for them to do here.
Exactly. Both of them are great. And Michael B. Jordan, and of course, he's good in this. Like the actors are good. The actors are, they embody the roles.
The actors are better than the material.
Oh, 100%, I agree.
Yeah. And it's sad to have all the actors put together. Yeah. And even Dolph Lundgren, who in the past I would not have categorized as someone I'd say, this is a really great actor. And I'm by no means saying, Dolph Lundgren, Academy Award prospect. But I thought he was really good here. When they gave they gave him stuff here that was beyond just aping his performance from the first one or reciting lines, when they gave him time, I thought he was good.
You know what? There's something very rugged about him. That I could see, he now fills a screen in a way in which there seems to be a lot of depth and back character just by how he looks physically. That I would say and I think over the years of all the work he's done, he's definitely honed a little bit more skill than certainly he did when we first saw him as this character. I agree, and the whole bit where they were doing, where he's trying to work up the nerve to ask Bianca to marry him. To me, I almost felt like, this doesn't feel like Creed to me. This doesn't feel like the character. This feels like we're just filling in space because, just from what we've known from his first one and how much he's, someone who's pushed out there and almost a little bit impulsive and
goes after what he wants.
Things. He's a fighter and all those pieces.
They say that right in this film too. They characterize it as you fight the way you live. You just go out there, and sometimes you should hold back and you just go out there and go after it. And that's the way I am. But in this thing, like, I don't understand why he's nervous to ask her. They're together for a long time now. Like, why is he nervous of asking her?
Yeah. And they bring in the, hey Rocky, how did you do it? And all that stuff. That was
just felt to me like just trying to do a cute scene.
That's what it felt like to me. It didn't feel real. It felt on the surface. Hey, I think this is what the fans will want.
And this, we have to give Stallone a scene.
Yeah, and so that's where I think, and that sort of to me embodies a lot of what this film is, as opposed to kind of, whereas in Creed 1. Coogler, you could feel the love of this universe. You could feel the love of the movie and the character, and it means something very deeply. And I know his father was a big fan of the film, and so you saw, even a little bit of that, what it means to have that father-son relationship. It was just there, very deeply. Where this felt very superficial.
Yeah, the first one, they've already covered that ground of that. Adonis has to get out of his father's shadow and stand on his own feet. That was the end of the first film. Like, he's done that. And in this, it seems like they're right back to retreading it. If he's still in Apollo's shadow and he's still the legacy of my father, and I've got to forge my own legacy. And you started doing that in the first one already. Yeah.
And that's why I feel like, okay, that story we felt with. Now, if we have Drago kind of experience a similar kind of thing, but in a different kind of way, and now these two are on, like we mentioned earlier,
a collision course.
That is interesting.
Now, I sort of did they did some little visual nods and things that I did like a few of them. I thought it was kind of, interesting or whatever that Adonis in his first two fights wears the red, white, and blue like that he was given in the first film, and wears they're his father's colors. Yeah. But then when he fights Drago in the third fight, it's the same style. It's the stripes and the stars and everything, but it's all in blacks and grays.
Yeah,
it's like it's sort of like it's the same but different.
Evolutionary.
That was kind of, I was like, that kind of hit me. One thing that sort of tickled me, I don't know if it really makes a difference or not. I think I nudged you in the theater, but in the second fight, Bianca is dressed very much like Adrian was dressed in the first film. And I'm like, this is absolutely a visual reference to Adrian.
100%, yes. Yeah. Even with the hat on, and she's got the brooch on. Not sure if Adrian has a brooch, but the fact that it's a butterfly, it kind of feels very, very much like Adrian.
Yeah. And butterfly too. The imagery of a butterfly, the caterpillar that then
Yeah,
comes out of its chrysalis and becomes the beautiful
yeah.
thing, and that's exactly
yeah,
Adrian's story
good
arc in the
point.
first two films.
Exactly.
Not so much Bianca's. She would sort of be like the opposite of Adrian as a character. That she's outgoing and musician and everything like that. So she already has that achieved when we meet her in the first film. But another really terrible thing, I hated the way the first film played out. That these films have always been, a little bit fast and loose with what would happen in real life. Like some of the beatings guys take. But the conclusion of the first fight with Drago is Creed is knocked down to his knees, and then Drago takes a sucker punch and knocks him literally unconscious while he's on his knees. Which would never happen in a real, but this is beyond stupid and for real world. And then not only would he be suspended in the film, they say he's disqualified in the fight, but then he still has the right to demand contendership. And in real life, no, not that this is real life, but no way, that guy would be probably suspended for 3 years from boxing for doing this. And then Creed would not be shamed into fighting him. This would be you don't deserve a shot at the title. Look how you acted. And I hated that, and I thought it was too over the top.
Well, yeah, and again, what would motivate him to do that at that moment?
It's not that.
There's nothing there.
Professional fighters aren't like that. The incidences of things like when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear are so extremely rare that a professional fighter, be it in boxing or MMA, loses their cool to that degree in a fight that they do something like that it constitutes assault. They don't. These are highly trained dudes, and they most of the time keep themselves under control.
Especially in context to the fact that he was absolutely destroying him in the fight. And it's not like all of a sudden Creed gave him some kind of a dirty comment or something like that, where you can almost be okay, he loses his edge
or hits him in the back of the head after the bell as he walks away. Nothing. He's killing him in the fight. There's no reason for him to not just back off and let him get up and then just take him down again. It makes zero sense.
Yeah. The only reason why they did that was so that way he wouldn't walk away with a belt, and they have that sort of a convolution of a storyline.
And I don't understand what the point of that would be.
Yeah, no,
he still goes to fight him again.
Yeah.
So there's a rematch regardless. So what?
Why not give him the belt?
Did they think this is how we're making it different than other Rocky films? He doesn't win the title, and therefore this is not like Rocky 3.
I don't know. It seems really convoluted in what they're trying to do at that point, at that time, other than maybe just trying to really sort of feel like it was like one of the Rocky films that I don't particularly have affection for.
Yeah, so, so I thought that really was stupid. The training montage, out in the desert, that was just. It's the
same
thing.
Territory.
It's hitting a trope. We got to do a thing.
Yeah,
so
that you're gonna get.
Yeah, that didn't bother me so much.
What about running up the stairs?
You know what? I'm gonna say. Thanks for reminding me. I will say that I did like that.
Oh yeah.
The showing the people run the Rocky steps, and then you get to the top, and that Drago were up there doing it. I did kind of like that.
Okay,
I'm kind of like. This is sort of like they're in Rocky's space, so it was kind of almost like they're
trying to. Hey, this is what Balboa would have seen.
I don't know. Maybe they're trying to be like we're tapping into a thing, and I think it was almost more about Ivan Drago than Victor.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I liked something about it. I just don't know if it really meant anything in this film. It's just maybe it's like, and I think maybe the film is actually kind of populated with numerous occasions of this. They came up with ideas that were really cool, but didn't know how to organically fit them in.
Yeah.
And maybe when I say that I like the film, I think maybe I like those moments. And there's so many moments like that in the theater I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. That's kind of neat. But when you string them all together, there was nothing to connect them.
I would say the same with the underwater scenes. It was the way and what you're saying, because you saw him training underwater, and then you saw him kind of be at the bottom of the pool, like both literally and image wise as well. And to me, I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting, but because it's shot in the same kind of way, I don't think it was really effective to be like a bookend kind of imagery, where to me it also I felt like, oh, maybe this is just a similar, they just did one setup as opposed to it actually having a purposeful point in the story. It just felt like something that they thought of in the moment that looked cool. I think this looks cool, so let's do this. Where it didn't feel really motivated otherwise.
No, I'm trying to think. There was a few other ones, and now they're escaping my brain. But yeah, just it had some interesting ideas in there, but it just got in the way of itself. And maybe if it would have been pared back, I don't know if it needed to be like, it was like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
It did not have to be 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I think it could have easily, like, I said, by changing some of the things we've talked about, you easily could have pulled this in at like 1:45.
Oh, yeah. I think it should have aimed to be a 90-minute film.
Yeah, and it felt longer than 2:10 to me.
Yeah.
At times, it really dragged, and I'm like, even though I knew where it was going, I'm like, kind of like, come on, let's get there.
What story was there that needed to be resolved in that timeline? Like, there's nothing there that could have been easily done in 90 minutes. Interesting, though. I was kind of curious to know a little bit more about the cinematographer. Same guy who did Chef.
Really?
Yeah, which was kind of interesting. He's done a couple episodes of Game of Thrones, and a few, quite a bit of few films.
Do you happen to remember his name, or should I pull it up here?
Oh no, it's Kramer. I thought I had it. Morgenthau, I think. Kramer Morgenthau. Yeah.
Yes,
and he's
Kramer Morgenthau. Yeah.
Lots of TV stuff. He did. It was so funny though, because there's something about this film that reminded me of Terminator Genesis. And I think it was like,
same director?
No, same cinematographer.
Same cinematographer as Terminator Genesis. Well, I'm not going to blame him for Genesis. The director was Stephen,
who I'm not familiar with.
Capel Jr. What else has he done? I don't think he's done a lot of other stuff. I was looking him up the other day, and I did not notice a ton of other things that he's done that I was familiar with.
Yeah, there's a skateboard movie he's done. Now that you mention it. That I haven't seen. That's the only thing I'm familiar with him on. I haven't really seen a whole lot else.
It looks like a lot of TV.
Yeah.
And not stuff that I watch. Not that that's a metric, but I just so I'm not familiar with his other work.
Is there something called like Inland or something like that? Something Land?
The Land?
The Land. I think that's the skateboard film.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. I'm not a skateboarder. Shock to anyone that knows me. But
well, we're not going to see
really?
you doing any tricks.
Gleaming the cube, 2020.
Yeah.
No, I will not be starring in the Tony Hawk story anytime soon. But yeah, no, and I was really disappointed that you could have had another decent film to follow Creed 1.
Yeah.
But just no, too many things. They just seem to be, like you said, checking off boxes and plugging things in, and just like. It almost seemed like it was made by committee, like written by a committee, like just punch people in a room throwing and.
Yeah, and it was a quick production. It was in production up in this March till June, and now it's in theaters.
Wow,
it felt very quick. I'm not sure. I didn't see a budget for it, but I'm guessing it'd probably be around 45, 50, somewhere in that range maybe. And it made $12 million on its opening day on Wednesday.
Really, I wonder what it's going to make for the weekend.
I'm guessing.
I'm just going to keep talking here. I'm going to try to pull up some estimates.
Okay, sounds good. I would say based on that, it'd probably be somewhere in that maybe 70, 75 range, maybe. And I'm sure that's, if I recall, Creed was a slower build, but to get $12 million on Wednesday is insane. Like that's for an
a lot of
day
people.
On a Wednesday?
It was. I will say it was a very well promoted film.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The trailer blew my brain, and I was so excited. And even looking back, I was kind of like, no, all it's got is Friday estimates here and stuff like that. They don't have weekend estimates up yet. So
I'm guessing it'll probably be in that 75.
Yeah. But I was looking back. I'm like. Okay, and I can't say it was misrepresented because it showed me all the things. It showed Victor Drago. It showed this. They're going to have a title fight. So it wasn't really deceptive in the marketing.
No,
what
not
I
at all.
saw was what they promoted to me. I just think it was also more than that. But I'm kind of like, well, yeah, they gave me all the things and they gave me Drago. They didn't pull the rug on anything on me. But I just kind of didn't like it as much as a movie as I did as a trailer.
That's the best way to put it. I really felt like it was fan bait in the trailer. Mm-hmm. Everything that I was excited about seeing, I saw in the trailer, and I didn't see any more depth than that in the film.
And maybe because Creed 1 was good, maybe in my mind I thought, well, they're going to make a good one again. So they're showing us what we need, what people need to get in the theater, and in there they're going to have a bit more of a movie, and they really didn't.
Then that's exactly
so
it.
They didn't sell me anything that wasn't there. I sold myself.
Exactly, because Rocky Balboa was, hey, you know what, you kind of won me over. I'm back in this universe. Creed was great. I was expecting that there would be a lot more to it, and I think you nailed it on the head. That with a great trailer, I'm like, sweet, we're going to have an awesome film here. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited to see it. Definitely wanted to see it on opening day, and unfortunately, I was just like, oh, this feels like a Rocky 4.
Yeah, and I would say, and I think I wrote this in my review that I posted on the website on screenchat.ca, that unless some writer has something radically different to do with this or something new to say, I don't want to see Creed 3. I don't think we need to see a Creed 3.
Where else will it go?
I'm sure if the box office is big, we probably will see Creed 3, but I don't know what else there is to say right now.
Yeah, I honestly don't. Like, you're going to be hanging on other films that right now Clubber Lions Kid is going to come out of the woodworks. Like, really?
Yeah, no, I don't need to. Yeah, and what do you do? Just, here he's, yeah. No, there's nothing else for this to say. Like, he's out of his father's shadow. He's beat his demons. He's got his legacy.
Yeah, and I know I'm belaboring this, but that's where I would like to this have been about Drago, and really set up that runaway train where then in the next film you could almost have, okay, who's your alliance to? Like, if we've seen, let's say Drago's character really go through hell to kind of go through this, where, well, maybe Creed had a bit of privilege because he was taken under the wing by Marianne. And whereas Drago had to basically fight his way out of the streets and and do it in a way that we've seen. The fact that his character is nothing more than what his dad's character was in part one, like, we're way beyond that world of where anything that is Soviet related is evil and just almost like stone face. All that is so far done as
it's a stereotype.
It's a stereotype. It's so far done that it just feels like, oh my God, there's so much more there that can be done, and that could be a story right there.
When you said privilege, that tweaked in my brain something completely different here too that I completely forgot about too, that bugged the shit out of me watching it. That first of all, when she's pregnant, Bianca says, because her character is deaf, and she's like, what if the baby's deaf? And they're like, oh, don't worry about it. And then the baby's born, and it is deaf, and they do like this. They have this whole scene of doing a hearing test, and this is a major thing. Oh no, our daughter's deaf, and I was like, how first world problem is that? Yeah. She's born healthy.
Yeah,
she doesn't have like a hole in her heart or like a severe disability. She's deaf. Big deal. And Bianca has been learning to deal with losing her hearing for her whole adult life. Adonis knows sign language because he's learning it with the anticipation that she is going to be deaf someday. So the two of them already communicate. Yeah. And they play this off as if this is the worst thing that has ever happened. Oh no, our daughter's born deaf. And it's like, then you deal with it. And you already know sign language. The baby will learn it from you. It's like, this is naughty. And they play it off to be like as if they were born and said, she has childhood leukemia.
Well, and I guess that's a bit insulting. I agree, because deaf culture has a very enriched culture in which Bianca's character can be seen as a great character who is a musician, and she's deaf. It doesn't matter, but the fact is she is hearing with the devices she has.
She got the hearing aids and
so it doesn't really land to the, I guess, what they were trying to build out of that, and I didn't connect with that bit at all.
I felt like they wanted to have a problem with the baby to try to create one more problem for Adonis or something, and then something else to overcome, and then they're like, well, we don't want to give it a serious thing like cancer or like a hole in the heart or something really bad, or but Bianca's deaf, so that's a natural thing. We'll make the baby deaf, but we'll just play it up like it's horrible, and it's like, no, that's like not on the level. Like, that's just not even disproportionate to what their reaction is disproportionate to what the problem is.
Exactly, as well as I would say even just not contemporary, in the sense that if you look back at some great social justice movements that you've seen in like deaf schools and things like that, of what a great heritage. There's a great culture in the champion of being able to overcome and to for all intent and purposes, live very complete and happy, healthy lives. So, like, why is this a thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just
doesn't feel contemporary.
No, and rung very hollow for me. But so overall, wrapping up here. I'm gonna have to. I don't know. Coming out of it, I don't think I experienced your level of frustration, and maybe my brain is just, I don't know. In this. I might have been partially. No, that's okay. No, it's not at all.
Oh, jeez.
Like, I've agreed with every one of your points and validated and echoed them. So I think we saw all the same things. I'm wondering myself that, being that this was a sequel, and so many sequels in recent memory have disappointed, that I wonder if my brain is starting to program that when I see it, I'm like, hey, I want to like this, The promo is going to be very good, and I was so getting disappointed all the time by going in and seeing it didn't live up to what in my mind it was. So I've started watching films sometimes now, and when I subconsciously realize it's letting me down, I just sort of try to enjoy the experience by looking for things that I like in it and going, well, I liked that it did this, I liked that it did that. I've been trying to do the same when I write reviews. I try to be not like, I'm just going to constantly shovel shit on these movies. I try to, even in ones I don't like, I try to look for something that was a good thing. And so things like, I think last year, almost a year ago, when we saw Star Wars The Last Jedi, which is a garbage film that I strongly disliked, but I still... well, I like this part of it, and I like that part of it, and I try to just enjoy those parts I liked. So maybe with Creed here, I was just like, well, I kind of liked the image and the idea that Drago threw the towel in for his kid, even if they didn't build to it. And I liked the idea of the restaurant scene, even if it wasn't executed well and they didn't build to it properly. Yeah. So there was things in it I did like. I think now, as we talk through it, I realize maybe not as many as I thought in there, so I'm probably, but hey, that's the way it goes, and that's why I love having conversations with you all the time about film, because we're always figuring stuff out like that. But
exactly.
Oh, so overall,
for me, this lands into the level of Rocky 4, Rocky 5. It would be like a tier 3 Rocky experience.
I think I would agree. I'd hang it right there around 4. Yeah. It's unfortunate that it's been 30 years since that film, and like you said, a lot of the things are still like the stereotype of a Russian being scary, even if they didn't go all the way to like suggesting he was using steroids or he was like a Superman.
Well, and I guess,
but I was kind of glad. I was waiting on that.
Actually, that's a good point. They could have easily gone there with like the recent Olympics and everything like that he was doping. Yeah. And my God, is the guy huge.
Yeah. Oh, he's a monster. His name is, one sec here, I'm going to pull it up. That actor's name, he's Florian Montenot? Yeah, he is a monster. He's a real boxer, I think. I think Alex, frequent guest on the show, looked it up and told me that he's actually, or he probably mentioned it in the last episode, that guy's a real boxer, and not the first time they've done this in the series, but he's a monster.
He's huge, and the camera likes him. Like I could see him popping up in other things for sure. And
unfortunately, probably only as like an action heavy though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But, like, well, all these guys, like how many of these guys from the Rocky universe are now in different comic book movies over the years? Like,
this one has a lot of comic book people in there.
Exactly.
Most of this cast has been in the Marvel universe in one way or another.
Yeah, so you can play.
Even Dolph Lundgren played the original Punisher in the 90s.
Exactly.
Tessa Thompson is Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan,
of course,
was I forget his name right now in Black Panther.
Yeah.
He was the main enemy in Black Panther, and he was Human Torch in that horrible Fantastic Four film.
Oh, right.
What else was he?
No, I was going to say Sylvester Stallone.
So Stallone was in the last Guardians of the Galaxy.
Exactly. Red Sonja was...
Brigitte Nielsen was Red Sonja. That's another character, another comic book character.
Yeah.
So they are a ton now. Boy.
Hey, sign him up. He's
who else? The guy that played... He plays the son of Duke, the character from the earlier things. He made an appearance in Creed, and he trains him. And he's
Little Duke.
Little Duke, and I'm almost positive he was also in a Marvel movie. This makes for really awesome radio here as I'm trying to dig up my phone.
Wood Hearns or Wood Harns or something like
that? Wood Harris.
Wood Harris, there we go.
Tony Little Duke. Yeah, okay. He was in, he's in Ant-Man. He plays somebody in Ant-Man.
No way.
Yeah, and somebody in Dredd. So that's a comic book movie as well.
There we go.
Yeah. He was really awesome in Remember the Titans. He played Julius in Remember the Titans. We're getting way off topic here. And that was the first time I remember seeing him, and I have a lot of affection for Remember the Titans.
Yes.
And he was really fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, we've wandered way off the topic now. I think we've said all we need to say about Creed 2.
Yeah.
If you went and saw it, I hope you found something in it you liked or didn't totally. I never find a day at the movie's a waste of money. It has to go pretty far for me to say I wish I had that $10 back. But Creed, if you really like sports movies and if you kind of don't mind ignoring, I don't know, maybe if you watched a superficial film, you might like this. So I would recommend it on that basis, but I have trouble really recommending it as a decent film.
That's a good way to put it. All right. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Warren, thanks for joining me on this experiment, and hopefully we're going to do this some more, review some films. And until next time, this has been Screen Chat Reviews. Until next time, hey, Warren.
I must break you.